Bitcoin's going to grow up, right? Bitcoin's on a path to go from nothing to 500 billion to 10 trillion to 100 trillion dollars to 200 trillion. At some point, it should be 10, 20, 30% of all of the wealth in the world. If it's going to grow up like that, then it's inevitable that it had to be embraced and was going to be embraced by Wall Street. I think that from the years 2020 to 2024, that was the great transition of Bitcoin from being a retail asset in the crypto ecosystem, offshore, unregulated, poorly understood, the Wild West. And by the end of 2024, it will have emerged as an institutional asset in mainstream financial ecosystems on Wall Street. Bitcoin's coming to Wall Street. And this is, it's like, I guess like college, you know, you started as a child and then you left home, and freshman year is very scary. And you've got 4 years of adjustment. You encounter people that are better educated than you or smarter than you, that come from parts of the world you've never been to, maybe that have more power than you. And initially it's a bit scary, but by the end of your college education, you're ready to go out in the world and compete with everybody else. And I think that coming out of 2024, Bitcoin is emerging as an institutional grade asset, and it's not going to be competing with the Bitcoin forks or other proof of work coins, or, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried's favorite yo-yo token, but it's or you know, apes or cats or, you know, crazy crypto things. It won't be thought of as that. It's going to be competing against owning a block of real estate in London, or owning New York, or owning a ton of gold, or owning a building, or perhaps owning $1 billion of the S&P index, or owning 1 million shares of Apple stock. And so definitely nobody thought that in 2019 or 2020. But if Bitcoin's going to grow up, right? Bitcoin's on a path to go from nothing to 500 billion to 10 trillion to 100 trillion dollars to 200 trillion. At some point, it should be 10, 20, 30% of all of the wealth in the world. If it's going to grow up like that, then it's inevitable that it had to be embraced and was going to be embraced by Wall Street. So if we consider the significance of BlackRock and the ETF, first of all, the real important point is there's broad-based consensus now that Bitcoin is an asset class, and that's a major revolution. If Fidelity and BlackRock and if 10 other ETF issuers all agree that Bitcoin is an asset class, right, it should be 10x to 100x bigger than it is right now. There's also broad-based agreement that sometime in the next year, a spot ETF will be approved, and that's also significant. I think the third significance is this is not BlackRock taking over Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin, you know, being embraced by BlackRock, right? This is Bitcoin being embraced by Wall Street. Now, nobody on Wall Street, none of these ETFs, none of these leaders of these money managers have said, we just heard about Bitcoin, we're here to fix it. What they've said is, we heard about Bitcoin, it seems like everybody in the world wants it. And since we offer people gold and bonds and equity and other forms of investment options, we have a vacuum and we are lacking, and we won't be complete until we're offering a Bitcoin product. So I'm not concerned about it. I think it's to be expected. I also think it's everybody that joins the Bitcoin ecosystem with humility helps, right? When Block shows up with Cash App and they build Bitcoin into Cash App, with respect to the protocol, they're helping Bitcoin. They're providing an on-ramp to Bitcoin. Not the only one. When you create a new signing device, you're helping Bitcoin. When you create a new node or, you know, any kind of software that helps you run a Bitcoin node, you're helping Bitcoin. When you're buying Bitcoin, you're helping Bitcoin. How you buy Bitcoin, right, is of less importance than the fact that you respect the protocol and you're assisting it. So there's a whole class of investors that cannot currently buy Bitcoin, and they can't support Bitcoin, right? You could say, well, one way to support Bitcoin is I buy the Bitcoin, I hold my own keys. That's true. That's probably the purest way to support Bitcoin. But MicroStrategy supports Bitcoin by buying Bitcoin. And there are a lot of investors in MicroStrategy that can't buy the underlying asset, but they can buy the MicroStrategy stock. That's another way to do it. We're levered long, so you have to study our financials because you have to get comfortable with the way we do it. And there's 1,000 pages to read. So a lot of people might not want to read the 1,000 pages and figure out whether or not MicroStrategy's Bitcoin strategy is good or bad. So a spot ETF allows them to buy $100 million of Bitcoin in 1 minute without putting up any cash, without rebuilding all their systems. So anybody that's got $10 billion of capital, they have a compliance system, an accounting system, a compensation system, a control system, a risk management system. They have a bank. The bank actually, they have a collateral system. So all of these systems allow an employee working for the company for 2 years to punch a button and buy $10 million of something like Apple stock or government bonds or S&P index. And so that's what you would expect if you're running the pension fund of a fireman's union. You expect those controls, and if you're going to create a scalable system, you need all of those systems, if not to make sure that no one steals all your money, to make sure that you actually pay your taxes and you compensate people, and then you can do your accounting and you can do your reporting. So they can't buy Bitcoin right now, and the only way to buy Bitcoin the hardcore maxi way is they have to rebuild every single one of those systems. It took 30 years to build those systems. They're not rebuilding a parallel system that took 30 years to buy one new thing. So if Bitcoin wants the support of Wall Street, then it needs to be built into the BlackRock money management systems and the Fidelity money management systems. And this ETF is critical for that because the existing ETFs, the futures-based ETFs, are bleeding 10% of the capital a year. If you put $1 billion into a futures-based ETF, you will probably pay $100 million a year in lost capital because of the inefficiency of the futures market. So right now, people don't have, that is, institutional investors don't have any easy way to support Bitcoin or buy it in an economically responsible fashion. And so they just stay out. When you see these spot ETFs get put in place, you're going to be creating the equivalent of a 6-lane superhighway between Wall Street and Bitcoin. And now you're going to see billions and billions of dollars flow. In some cases, billions a week. In some cases, could be billions a day. And until you see it, you won't see any capital flow from those institutions. It's trapped in the 20th century asset classes. So these last 36 to 48 months have been pivotal. We've now reached this point where it's clear that Bitcoin is going to be successful. It is going to be embraced. It's just a question of to what degree will you benefit. So I'm not worried about Bitcoin anymore. You shouldn't worry about Bitcoin, right? People that are launching these spot ETFs, they're not worried about Bitcoin. They're not trying to change Bitcoin. They've only got one question on their mind, which is, how do I make sure that my ETF is the most successful one? How do I make sure that my Bitcoin offering is the most successful one, right? And that's the question you should ask yourself, right? How are you going to stack? The winner is the person who stacks the most effectively. If you're going to contribute to Bitcoin, how are you going to create a Bitcoin product or service that respects the protocol that provides value to the billions of people that are going to want it? If you're offering a Bitcoin security or a Bitcoin financial product, how do you create the one that people are going to want? If you're analyzing Bitcoin or advocating or educating, the question is just how are you going to do that most coherently, most effectively? And I think that's the challenge that all of us face. If you stay focused on Bitcoin, stay cheerful, stay constructive, don't let the trolls distract you, right? Like someone wants you to basically sell all of your worldly goods, because the world is coming to an end because of too much something in the atmosphere in 100 years. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by someone that wants you to change the code, change the protocol. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin, right? The issue is, what's wrong with you? Do you have your head screwed on straight? Are you focused? Are you doing everything you can do? Bitcoin doesn't need your help. You need to help yourself. And so I think that's my message to the audience is focus upon what you can do for Bitcoin, right? Focus on how you're going to embrace the protocol. You're either a buyer or an investor. That's good. Or you're an advocate. That's good. You know, if you're using your fame, your power, your money in order to further the Bitcoin ecosystem with humility, respecting Satoshi, respecting the protocol, respecting the work done by people before you, right, then you're going to be successful and happy. And I think the people that are fighting it, right, the people working on the next Bitcoin, the people that are trying to fix it, I think they're just squandering their life's energy. They're not going to be successful. They're not going to be happy, right, because the writing is on the wall here, right? And the great irony is Bitcoin is poised